I want to share with you right now an incident that has happened over the last 24 hours for me on social media. And the reason that I want to share it with you is I think there are some very valuable lessons here in terms of how you communicate and how that is directly impacting the influence that you have in your life and in your business. What happened was, I went into a Facebook group that I'm in that's got around about 20 odd thousand people in it, all potential business owners or business owners. And I put up a funny meme, a frustrated lady's face, like, and my caption that I put up there was something like, 18 and 19-year-old daughters get me like, please tell me I'm not alone. And it was a bit of a fun post, because I knew that there was going to be a lot of females in there with children that would kind of be able to maybe give me some advice or say, I get it. I was actually looking for somebody to kind of say, it's okay, you're doing a good job. It's not just you. We have the same experiences, right? And I knew it would get some kind of traction. What I didn't expect was a reply from a lady who said, you should be grateful that you have children. Involuntary childlessness isn't talked about and is very insensitive, and basically spare a thought for those of us that don't have children. And my first reaction was I felt a little bit ashamed. I'll admit I felt a bit ashamed, because I felt like I'd been called out, like I'd done something wrong, and I felt like a naughty schoolgirl. And then what followed that was a little bit like, really? Like, I can't even say that anymore? And I got a little bit angry. And then I took a step back and I thought, what has happened in that woman's world to make her see that post and have such a powerful reaction? And that's my first bit of advice to you. If you want to become more effective in your communication, and you want to have a greater influence on those directly in your sphere, but also worldwide, think before you speak. Now, what I'm not saying here is that I shouldn't have written the post. That's not what I'm saying at all. It was a completely, there was no malice intended for anybody. It was literally just like a kind of laughy, jokey, but also so frustrated, can somebody give me some advice kind of post. But what I recognize in that woman is to have such a powerful response. There has been something that's happened to her personally or somewhere in her sphere that has really highlighted the emotions on the other side of that story. So let me give you another example of that. As somebody who has suffered with, or did suffer with, eating disorders and weight issues for a really, really long time, if somebody in jest was to make a comment about weight, I would take that more personally than somebody who hadn't had the same experience as me. So but if somebody was in a group, like in the group I was talking about before, and they were talking about weight or, the perfect body or whatever, in the place that I'm in now, I wouldn't necessarily feel the need to go and respond to that, because I've dealt with some of those triggers. But there was a lot of emotion behind this woman's post, and I sat with it for a while and I thought about where she might be coming from. And I tried to take a different perception. So once I'd thought things through, the second step is get a different perception outside of your own, because we have no idea what people are going through. We have no idea of people's experiences. And whilst we shouldn't have to always think twice about, should I say this in case it offends somebody, it's always worth thinking about, before you respond to somebody else, is this going to be helpful? So I reached back out in the group and just said, there was no malice intended, no offense was intended at all in that post. At the same time, being frustrated with my children does not mean that every day I don't thank my lucky stars that I have two happy and healthy children. However, if I can't remember how Rose said it now, but basically if it's caused you offense in any way, I am deeply apologetic for that. And I sort of left it at that, because I wanted to let her know, which is a third point, that I acknowledge where she's at. Now, that what ensued after that was lots of people saying you shouldn't need to apologize, and they started talking to the other girl saying what you said to her was unkind. And I'm like, let's just stop that. Let's just have a little bit of compassion. Let's just not make this about us. Let's not make this a he said, she said. Let's put this into a context outside of ourselves. And yes, I do think that this girl was in a lot of pain. What happened? What if that woman had just lost a child? What if that woman had had several miscarriages? What if that woman had had a tragic accident and had just been told, you're never going to have children, and that was something that she was born for? We don't need to start a fight on social media. We don't need to agree with everybody, but what we can do is think before we react, and certainly think before you put something up there sometimes. Number two, have the rise in consciousness to look at something from a different perspective outside of your own. And number three, really acknowledge where somebody else is at. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to agree with it, but you can acknowledge where somebody else might be. I don't know what her circumstances were. I didn't ask what her circumstances were. I just said I didn't intend any malice. It was just a frustration post. However, if it's offended you or it's upset you, I do apologize for that, because I didn't want to upset anybody. And this isn't about anybody being right or wrong. It's that acknowledgement. And then moving on from there, there is always the opportunity to offer some kind of guidance or offer a conversation, or even, reach out to that person one-to-one and just say, again, just wanted to apologize. I hadn't thought about your perception before, and it will make me think twice. And the reason this is so important is because we're creating influence around ourselves all of the time. And communication is something that's so underrated. We're all so busy wanting to splurge on social media, whether it's splurging because someone's just cut you up on the motorway, whether an ex-partner has just been a complete whatever, whether somebody's just really served you badly in a supermarket. Social media is used for, from my perception, rants that are just splurging out negative energy that we really don't need. I'd much rather social media was used for, joyous things, but it's not always going to be that way. But what I'm asking you to do is to think about who you want to be when you get in these conversations. Do you need to get involved? Number one, do you really need to get involved in the conversation? Is there another way that you could interact with that conversation? Maybe you might want to reach out to one of the people, like on a one-to-one, just send them a voice message. Are you going to add value to the conversation? Or are you going to add an energy that potentially could just blow things up? Have you thought about what that other person might be feeling, or what might have happened to them to make them feel that way? You see, we've all got triggers. All of us have got triggers based on our experiences. We're triggered by our experiences if we haven't dealt with them. And the reason that I say to you that coming from a space of thinking about how am I being of influence here? How am I influencing others? How am I most importantly influencing myself by engaging in this conversation? And how do I communicate that? It has changed everything for me, because it stopped me from reacting from my trigger points first. There's a fantastic book that I'd recommend you read called Leadership and Self-Deception. You can get it on Amazon. If you just put that in the search bar, it comes right up. And I was recommended by one of my coaches to read this book to help me with better communication with my husband. The key takeaway from me for this book, even though I logically knew it, reading this book landed something differently, like right in here. And it was really the way that I see the book is when we're communicating with people, particularly with people that we know already, let's take off our goggles of experience. Because when we've got those goggles of experience on, they're loaded with the meanings that we've given things. They're loaded with memories. They're loaded with values and expectations that we have because of our own personal experience. But That's all subjective. And we don't need somebody to agree with us all of the time. It's like this. It's really strange how we're brought up to believe that there's one is right and one is wrong. Let's for a moment take off those goggles and communicate from this empty space of just speaking to another human being. Now, that's not always going to be easy either, because if you're communicating with somebody that's at a different consciousness level than you, they may not get it. But the more you practice this, the more those people will probably fall into rapport with you and start mirroring back at you what you're doing, or go, I don't quite know what's going on here, but I'm kind of getting a different energy feel from it. So I want to really encourage you, when you're on social media, particularly if you're building a business, think about how you're coming across in your communication, whether it's posting on your personal page. The past couple of weeks, I've been appalled at some of the things I've seen people posting on their Facebook pages when they are the face of their business. Did I feel the need to reach out and say something? I didn't personally know, because that's my perception. If they want to come to me and hire me as their high performance coach, will I tell them? Yes, I will. But again, it's my perception, and all I can do is to deliver that in a way that makes those people hopefully see things from a different perspective, but not to say that they're right and I am wrong. And that's my job as a coach. But growing your sphere of influence means that people are picking up on your energy from every little bit of communication that you've got. Seriously. So first of all, I'm going to go through those 4 points again. Think before you post or write something. Not from the realms of, I need to make sure this is completely PC in case I offend somebody. But if you're going to go on and start effing and jeffing about the person in front of you in the supermarket queue this morning, is that the kind of thing you need to be posting, and for what purpose? What does it say about you? How might people perceive that? Particularly if you're coming across as a professional person. The second thing is when you're communicating, please change your perception, and for a moment, think about what the other person might be experiencing. And in that moment, when we look from a different perception, we've taken off those goggles of our experience, of our triggers, right? Because when we get riled by something, when the energy lifts from us and we want to, the chances are it's something that we haven't dealt with. And we don't deal with that by pushing it onto somebody else. Okay? Maybe somebody just needs to talk, and maybe you could even offer them that. Maybe you could support them in something. The third really important thing when it comes to influence is acknowledgement. Influence and persuasion are huge in growing yourself personally in order to impact professionally as well. And one of those first steps is acknowledging where somebody else is at. Like I said, you don't have to agree with it, you don't have to like it, but you do need to acknowledge where they're at, where they've been to create that, and the context that means to them. You may not even get anywhere near that because you haven't had any of the experiences that have brought that person to that place. So don't try to. But telling somebody that they're heard, which is what I hope I did with that lady today. I hope she left that conversation feeling like at least I heard her. And that meant a lot to me. I heard her. Okay. I didn't make it about, oh my God, I was only trying to have a laugh on the post. She needed to be heard, and I hope that I acknowledged her in that space. And the fourth thing is that maybe sometimes you can offer some other help, or you can just offer something just a little bit more to let somebody know they've been seen and they've been heard. And just to wrap that all up, again, don't expect anything from this. This is more for you than for anybody else. This is not about, you trying to prove right or wrong. It's not about you trying to get something from it. It's just being this way is completely refreshing. And the more of us that can do this and can communicate from more of a level playing field where we're just listening. I hear what you said. I'd never thought about it like that way before. Thank you for giving me that perception. You don't have to follow that with a but. I'm going to keep doing it my way anyway, right? You don't have to follow that with anything. Just, I think there's far too many of us, or far too many people out there that are constantly on that need to be right, constantly trying to put their opinion in. And this is not about negating what your opinions are, but we don't have to all go around talking about them all of the time. I hope that has served you today. So just, yeah, please remember, communication, even on social media, or specifically on social media, is having a potential impact on your business. So please be mindful, remember those top tips, and I'll speak to you again real soon.